Did you really think you could move your parents into our house without even talking to me first? I asked, my voice shaking with anger and disbelief. My husband of 6 years, Ryan, barely looked up from his laptop. Instead, he smirked, a smirk I had grown to hate. Oh, Lisa, don't be so dramatic. It's just for a little while, and honestly, you don't get a say in this. His words hit me like a slap. This wasn't just any house, it was the home my grandparents left me, the place where I wanted to raise our son, Danny, in peace, far away from the negativity of Ryan's family. The house is in my name, I said firmly, my hands curling into fists at my sides. For a moment, Ryan's smug expression faltered, but before he could respond, our 2-year-old son, Danny, waddled into the room. I forced a smile for his sake, picking him up and pressing a soft kiss to his forehead. He didn't know about the tension between us. I'm not okay with this, Ryan. Your parents have never respected me or our home. Why now? I asked, struggling to keep my voice calm. Ryan shrugged, which only made my frustration grow. Their family, Lisa, you wouldn't understand. Family, the word felt like a cruel joke. My own family, who ran a small but beloved coffee shop in town, had always been my safe place, but Ryan's parents? They were anything but comforting. The doorbell rang, cutting through our argument. My heart sank. Through the peephole, I saw them, Ryan's parents, standing outside with their suitcases, ready to take over my home. Fine, Ryan, let them in, but this isn't over, I said, handing Danny to him before opening the door. Lisa, dear, Ryan's mother, Margaret, breezed past me without even looking at me. His father, Charles, followed, silent and stern as always. They made themselves comfortable in my living room, like they had always belonged there. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. I was done being the obedient, quiet wife. This was my home, and I wasn't going to let them walk all over me anymore. The next few days were unbearable. Margaret had a way of taking over in the most suffocating way possible. She rearranged my kitchen, criticized how I parented, and acted like she owned the place. Danny shouldn't be eating that, Lisa. It's not healthy, she said one morning, eyeing the cereal I had poured for him. I gritted my teeth, holding back my frustration. He's fine, Margaret, it's just cereal. She scoffed. In our home, we believe in proper nutrition. You really should learn. Each of her comments was like a needle, poking at my patience. And Ryan? He was useless, buried in his work, pretending not to notice the tension growing in our home. One evening, as I put Danny to bed, Margaret barged into his room. He's still not sleeping through the night? You must be doing something wrong, she said, shaking her head. Her words stung. I had tried my best to be a good mother, but she made me feel like I was failing. I'm doing fine, I snapped. Margaret just smirked. Your best isn't good enough. Maybe if you had a real job and some structure in your life, you'd know how to handle things properly. My hands clenched into fists. This is my house, Margaret. You're just a guest, don't forget that. She let out a cold laugh. Oh, sweetie, Ryan never mentioned how out of touch you are. This is his house too, and as his mother, I have every right to be here. The next morning, I reached my breaking point. I walked into Danny's room and found Margaret going through his drawers. What do you think you're doing? I demanded, my voice shaking with fury. Just organizing, she said casually, not even bothering to look at me. This room is a mess. That was it. Get out, now. Margaret finally turned to face me, raising an eyebrow. Oh, Lisa, you're just the wife. This is Ryan's house too, and he wants us here. I stormed out, my mind spinning. Ryan had betrayed me, Margaret had completely taken over, and they both acted like my feelings didn't matter. That night, as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I knew one thing for sure, I was done being a doormat. I wasn't going to let them take over my home, my life, or my son's future. The fight was just beginning, and I was ready. A few days later, during a tense dinner, Ryan dropped a bombshell. My parents need to stay with us longer. Their house is being renovated, Ryan said casually, like it was no big deal. I felt my anger rise. Longer, Ryan? We never even talked about them staying here in the first place. He shrugged, avoiding my eyes. It's just for a few more weeks. What's the big deal? The big deal is that your mother treats me like a stranger in my own home, I shouted, unable to hold back my frustration. Margaret, overhearing us, chimed in with her usual condescending tone. Lisa, you're overreacting. We're family. You should be more welcoming. Her words only made me more determined. I wasn't going to let them push me around anymore. It was time to take a stand. The next morning, I called my brother, James, my biggest supporter. They're taking over my life. James, I can't handle it anymore, I said, my voice shaking as I tried to hold back tears. His voice was strong and steady. Lisa, you need to stand up for yourself. Don't let them push you around. It's your house. So you make the rules. His words gave me the strength I needed. I decided to confront Ryan, but this time, I would be prepared. I gathered proof, pictures of the mess Margaret left in my kitchen, notes about how she disrupted our daily routines, and a list of the belittling comments she made toward me. When the time was right, I walked into the living room where Ryan and Margaret were sitting. "We need to talk, now," I said firmly, keeping my voice steady even though I was furious inside. Ryan looked up, surprised. "What's this about, Lisa?" "It's about your parents, Ryan. Their constant interference and lack of respect for me in my own home have to stop today," I said, holding up my notes. Margaret scoffed. "This is ridiculous. We're just trying to help." "Help? By treating me like I don't belong in my own house? By ignoring my boundaries and making all the decisions?" I fired back, my frustration clear. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. "Lisa, they're my parents. We can't just kick them out." I took a deep breath and stood my ground. "No, Ryan, they are guests in my house, and they have stayed too long. Either they leave, or I do, with Danny." Silence filled the room. I saw the realization in Ryan's eyes, but it was Margaret who spoke first. "You wouldn't dare," she said, her voice sharp with anger. I met her gaze without hesitation. "Watch me." That night, Ryan's parents packed their bags. As they walked out, Margaret gave me a bitter look. "You'll regret this, Lisa." But as the door shut behind them, I felt nothing but relief. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe again. I had taken back my home. After they left, the house felt eerily quiet, but Ryan's attitude changed. He became cold and distant, barely speaking to me. I knew this wasn't over yet, but I was ready for whatever came next. Taking back my life. One evening, as Danny's laughter filled the room, I found comfort in that small piece of home. His happiness was a reminder of what truly mattered. Then, Alvin spoke. "I have to go on a business trip. I'll be gone for a few weeks." His tone was indifferent, like his career mattered more than our already crumbling marriage. "Fine," I replied shortly, hiding my relief at the thought of his absence. The moment he left, the house felt different, lighter, freer. I began undoing the changes his mother, Rose, had made, small victories that restored a sense of control, but everything shifted when I stumbled upon his open laptop. A series of emails, conversations I was never meant to see, proof of an affair. It wasn't just betrayal, it was confirmation of what I had ignored for too long. Anger, heartbreak, and exhaustion flooded me all at once. Alvin would face the consequences. I took careful steps, ensuring that both he and his family would be held accountable for their manipulation and deceit. The first move? Securing my future. I contacted a lawyer, explained everything, and initiated divorce proceedings. Next, the house, my grandparents' legacy, my independence. I called a real estate agent. "I want to sell the house quickly and quietly." She hesitated. "Are you sure? It's a big decision." I didn't even blink. I've never been more sure of anything. Within days, offers rolled in. Each one was another step toward my freedom. The thought of Alvin returning to find that he had lost his grip on everything brought a grim sense of satisfaction. During this time, I reconnected with my family. They had always been there, I had just been too blind to see it. "We're here for you, no matter what," my father reassured me. As I watched Danny play, oblivious to the storm around us, I made a silent promise. I would protect his happiness, no matter what it took. The confrontation, Alvin's return loomed, but I was no longer the woman he had left behind. I was ready. When I heard his key turn in the lock, my heart pounded, but I refused to let fear control me. "Lisa, I'm home," he called, his voice echoing through a space that no longer belonged to him. I stepped into the living room, standing tall. "Welcome back, Alvin. We need to talk." His eyes scanned the room, confusion creeping in. What's going on? The house looks different." I stayed composed. "I sold the house, Alvin. It's no longer ours." His face twisted in shock. "You did what? You can't just sell our house without telling me." I met his anger with unwavering calm. "It was my house, and after what I found out, you don't get to have a say anymore." A flicker of panic crossed his face. "What are you talking about?" I took a deep breath. "The affair, Alvin. I know everything." His confident mask crumbled. He fumbled for words, excuses, anything to regain control. "Lisa, it's not what you think," he stammered. "I think it's exactly what it looks like." His panic turned to irritation. "You're overreacting. We can work through this." I didn't flinch. "There's no we anymore, Alvin. I filed for divorce." I handed him the papers, watching as the reality set in. What followed was a blur of accusations, denials, and desperate attempts to shift blame, but I stood firm. As he stormed out, vowing to fight the divorce, I felt a strange mix of freedom and uncertainty. I had taken the first step toward a new life, but I knew the battle wasn't over. Moving forward, in the weeks that followed, Word spread. Alvin's parents, so confident, so overbearing, were now drowning in the fallout of their son's choices. They tried to reach out, but I ignored them. They were no longer my problem. I focused on what mattered: Danny, my future, closing this chapter for good. And as I looked around at my new beginning, I knew one thing for sure: I had finally taken my life back. A new chapter. When the court hearing arrived, Alvin looked utterly defeated. For the first time, it seemed like he truly grasped the gravity of what he had done, but it was too late. The judge granted me the divorce and full custody of Danny. Justice had been served. Alvin tried to speak to me afterward, his voice edged with desperation. "Lisa, please." I cut him off with a calm finality. "You made your choice, Alvin. Now live with it." Then, I turned and walked away, for the last time. News of our divorce spread quickly, so did the truth about his affair. The once respected Alvin, who had always taken pride in his status, watched his reputation crumble. His parents, once judgmental and proud, now found themselves shunned by the very people they had sought approval from. As I stepped out of the courthouse, holding Danny's small hand in mine, I felt something I hadn't in years: freedom. This wasn't just the end of a painful chapter, it was the start of something new. Rebuilding. Life after the divorce felt like stepping into the light after years in darkness. I had regained control, not just over my home, which was now sold, but over my own life. Danny, blissfully unaware of the complexities of adult pain, thrived on the love and stability I gave him. My days were full but fulfilling, focused on rebuilding, finding joy in the little things, and running the coffee shop, my newfound sanctuary. Still, the past had a way of casting shadows. One evening, as I locked up the shop, a familiar but unwelcome presence appeared: Alvin. He looked nothing like the confident man I had once known. His suit was wrinkled, his face gaunt, his entire demeanor that of a man who had lost everything. "Lisa, please," he said, desperation in his voice. "I need to talk to you." I studied him, feeling nothing but detachment. "What do you want, Alvin?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. His gaze dropped. "I lost my job. The scandal ruined me. I can't afford alimony or child support. My parents, they're broke too." The old me might have felt pity, but that version of myself no longer existed. "That's not my problem, Alvin," I said, my voice firm but calm. "You made your choices, now you have to live with them." Without another word, I turned and walked away, closing the door on him and the past, for good. Moving forward, time passed, and life continued. Danny grew, his laughter filling our home with warmth. The coffee shop flourished, becoming a cozy gathering place for the community. I found happiness in the simplest things: the aroma of fresh coffee, Danny's giggles, and the unwavering support of friends and family. Alvin and his parents became distant memories, nothing more than a lesson in the consequences of betrayal. As I locked up the shop one evening, the sky painted in hues of orange and pink, I smiled. I reached down, taking Danny's small hand in mine. Our future was uncertain, but it was ours to shape. We were moving forward, one step at a time, toward something brighter.